All right, good afternoon. How's everybody doing? I'm gonna need a little bit more energy than that. How's everybody doing? Startup Boston, what's up? All right, thank you guys so much for coming. We have really one mission here, and that's just to bring people in the startup community together. And so we're so happy that all of you guys are here. My name is Jacob. I am the founder of Proctor, a residential property management company. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about first off, starting off with some of our amazing sponsors, Suffolk University in particular. Can we give them a hand of applause for everything they're doing? Donating this space, and not only that, they're also sponsoring this particular event as well. So just being able to partner with them here at Startup Boston has been huge. But really, there's not much more that they do have a booth. So if you're interested in exploring entrepreneurship, they have a ton of programs and opportunities. And maybe if you're someone here that's a little bit more seasoned, they have students and that could use people exactly like you's help. So just keep that in mind. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it off.
Thank you very much. I will say we have a lot more than entrepreneurship too, lots of different business majors and college of arts and science majors, and we have a wonderful law school. I just thought I'd put that plug in. So hello everyone, my name is Chaim Letwin, and I run our entrepreneurship department as well as our Center for Entrepreneurship here at Suffolk. And as a professor of entrepreneurship who spends my days teaching, researching, and just basically constantly thinking about what an entrepreneur does, I am super excited to be able to have a chance to sit down with Wes. What he has built is absolutely nothing short of extraordinary. And I'll share a little more about that as I go on. But I think my favorite thing about sitting down and talking to Wes is he really exemplifies everything I think of when I think of what it is to be an entrepreneur. So Wes Schroll and his team are also amazingly, incredibly supportive of entrepreneurship here at Suffolk, but at other universities and generally in the broader entrepreneurship community. They consistently go above and beyond, like a lot of people in the community, but they consistently go above and beyond to inspire and particularly empower young people to think creatively and be entrepreneurial. They do a lot of stuff with us over the summer with high school students, with our entrepreneurship students. And in fact, we passed a bunch of these out. You guys can look. They have a great event inspiring and enabling entrepreneurs next Friday. They have their Defeat the Odds pitch competition, which is the finals of a pitch competition where students are having the opportunity to win money, to get amazing mentorship. It's over in One Beacon. If you guys know where that's, the big, tall, brown building on the 32nd floor in the UMass Club. But it's actually a really beautiful view up there, and it's just going to be a great event. If you're interested in seeing entrepreneurs, go ahead, give this a scan. You can RSVP. It's free to attend. There'll be some food and appetizers, but really they'll just be amazing young entrepreneurs putting out really fresh, interesting ideas. So speaking about a young entrepreneur, you got to kind of think about where Wes started. He's a dynamic serial entrepreneur who began at just 14 years old. After launching 2 successful ventures early on, he went on to develop his business plan for what would later become Fetch in the sophomore year of his college career. So for all of my students out there, it's time to start thinking. It's time to get started. He secured, more than $18,000 in funding through pitch competitions and funding office space and prizes through pitch competitions, which, just a quick pitch, we do offer pitch competitions at Suffolk. You should all consider joining. And he built Fetch into a true powerhouse with over 1,000 employees and a valuation of over $3 billion, making it a true tech unicorn. His journey is remarkable, and it's a testament to the power of innovation, resilience, and I think most importantly, to the entrepreneurial spirit. So without further ado, I'll stop talking, and I'll get here for what I'll get started in what we're actually here for, to learn and hear what Wes has to say. I will tell you, I know we do have a decent amount of students in the room, and I know there is a 3:30 class, so I will make sure I get to questions pretty early, so we have plenty of time for everybody who has a question, or hopefully a lot of you to have a question to ask questions. So starting in the beginning, I'm going to start with kind of the discussion around founding. I guess my first question is, where did the original idea and the impetus for Fetch come from? I'm sure this is one you've heard many times.
Well, first, just a quick clarification. He oversold me and undersold me. and I just want to fact correct on 2 of those. Oversold because the first 2 startups were not successful. That was very generous to call them successful. They were successful in teaching me new things, horrible failures in terms of any sort of outcomes, and definitely didn't go anywhere. So definitely oversold there. Undersold on it was $180,000 that we won in business plan competitions. You said 18. But my point is there's actually a lot of money in startup plan competitions, and don't sleep on them as opportunities to get seed capital. In terms of that journey I was on, I was fortunate enough that I stumbled into entrepreneurship while I was in, is it not loud enough? Is that better? Cool. I stumbled into entrepreneurship while I was going to school at Acton Boxborough, and I had just come up with a couple ideas that I was working on while I was in high school. But by the time that translated into college, I decided I wanted to go and focus on entrepreneurship. So in my freshman year, I was trying to look for an idea of something that I thought was a big enough opportunity or pain point that I could try to go out and solve it. That's often where I tell people to look for if you're trying to start a company. Just try to find a pain point that you have in your own life and say, what could make this better? Chances are there's lots of other people who have tried to solve it as well, but the fact that it wasn't solved for you means there's probably an opportunity there. The one that hit me square in the face was when I had moved out of my dorm from my freshman year into an apartment my sophomore year. For the first time ever, I'm actually having to go and do all of my own shopping. And as I did that, I was trying to figure out how I could feel like I was getting something back for all those decisions I was making, whether it was which store I'm shopping at, what brands I'm buying, even flying back and forth to my home here in Massachusetts from Wisconsin where I was going to school. There were loyalty programs that, all the airlines were asking me to sign up for. And for the first couple of months, I thought that was actually kind of fun. I was like, oh, there's all these different ways of trying to figure out how I could maximize my dollar, mostly because I'm saving up for the weekends, honestly. My mom didn't know that, but that was the main goal I had. And a couple of months into it, though, I started to get frustrated because I'm like, all right, this is a lot of effort that I'm putting in. And more frustratingly than that was each one of these one-off things that I was doing to try to save myself money would save me a little bit, but never anything meaningful, and I couldn't combine them. So I was like, okay, I have a loyalty program for this grocery store. Panera's giving me, 2 more visits and I get a free piece of bread. My airline said if I fly 50 more times, I get a free flight. And I'm like, across all of these, if I could combine them, I'd have something meaningful. But on their own, there's no way I'm going to spend enough over a long enough course of time for me to actually stick with it. So that was very frustrating me. That was the point of pain that I identified. And so when I the first step I took was just to learn more about the industry. I focused on food because it was a highly consumable thing that I was choosing to purchase every single day and had a lot of those decision points. And those were the ones that were most broken. The grocery loyalty programs, the brand loyalty programs, they were all, in my opinion, the hardest to participate in, even though I was engaging with those products every day. So I actually just learned about the grocery industry, learned about the restaurant industry throughout my sophomore year, started networking into different people who would quickly help me get up to speed on what was going on in those spaces, why those loyalty programs existed. And that helped to then shape a actual business plan. And that's when I found out that not only did I need to have a business plan for one of my classes I was in, but that my school was hosting a business plan competition where the winner got $30,000. So wrote up that business plan and created a PowerPoint for it. We didn't have a single line of code written. We didn't have a product. There was no vibe coding. I couldn't code back then. So we were truly just going out there with a PowerPoint and 12 pages of paper that was a written plan that we had. But that was a lot of work still at the time. And I started to wonder, hey, if we do well in this business plan competition, $30,000 is nice, but not enough to actually start the company that I envision. So I started calling my friends from high school who went to other colleges and asking them, hey, does your school have a business plan competition? And lo and behold, a lot of schools like Suffolk have business plan competitions. And I sent them my business plan and my PowerPoint. And I said, can you enter this under your name? And I will fly out and compete for it. And we did that at UMass Amherst. So, I like UMass for that perspective, Boston College, a bunch of other schools. And that's how we won $180,000 in 45 days at the end of my sophomore year. That was enough for me to actually drop out and start the business full time, and then spent 4 years grinding away, finding product market fit. And then we launched the Fetch app in 2017 and have grown since then. How was that for a long-winded answer?
That was perfect. I love that story. And I have a couple of comments. So it goes to show you best plans. I actually wrote down 180 and I still didn't even read it correctly. But, the failing part, I couldn't help but noticing, I saw him a second ago, but Professor Huvage somewhere in the room. Nasir, show your hand up so everyone can see where you are, unless he walked out. He was somewhere. He's hiding somewhere.
He's shy.
He teaches a course called Failing Successfully, and we really think about in entrepreneurship how important those early lessons in failing are for getting better and better. And the other thing is, while it worries me a little running a pitch competition here at Suffolk, people may be coming and joining from other schools. It is actually one of the most entrepreneurial things I've ever heard of in thinking about how you can take advantage of resources that are out there. And we need to think well about how we might be able to guard against that as we move forward. So, sticking with the founding questions for one more, I'll stay in front of the mic here. One thing, especially early on, work with a lot of students, and you talked about your 2 failures beforehand, and I don't like to think of them as failures, learning options. But did you ever consider, giving up with Fetch? Or how many times, I know a lot of people, they go through and there's all these super challenging times. And I guess, what kept you going in those experiences? Because a lot of young entrepreneurs, they find that happens.
Yeah. I think the reality is I can't think of a single time in my 12 years working on Fetch where I haven't had moments of thinking that either are we going to fail or am I even like the right person to be still at the company as CEO right now. So I think that part's natural to question it. I'm very suspicious of people that aren't questioning it. One of my board members once told me it was my paranoia that I'm not good enough to lead the company and that the company's not where it should be. That is why I keep my job. So early on, those fears of, is this going to work? How are we going to get past this, what feels insurmountable hurdle? I mean, it happens multiple times a day. Versus nowadays, I only have those crises like once a month, so I spaced it out a little bit. But yeah, that would happen all the time. I think early on, the key thing was continuing to go back to the pain point and saying, is this something I'm still experiencing? Are other people experiencing it? The fact that we won those business plan competitions when we were competing against grad students that had products and revenue, and we still won, meant that we had a problem that most people could identify with. So I continued to just go back to, there is a total addressable market on this problem that is large. No one has solved it yet, because that's why everyone agrees it's still a problem, and that's why people are willing to talk with us or try it. And therefore, why not us in terms of solving it? If no one else has figured it out yet, why not us? And I think that was the thing that I would always remind myself on. And that's why I'd be very comfortable pivoting if like one thing didn't work, and I wouldn't beat myself up too much over it, because I'm like, the industry's full of multi-billion-dollar companies that haven't figured this out. So why should I feel that bad if this idea didn't work or that idea didn't work? So I think it was like always pulling back to that big picture and then just trying to like give myself that pump up of, hey, no one else has figured this out yet. And at least I'm spending every waking hour of my day thinking about this. So I feel like I'm actually in a decent position to have a shot at making this work. And I think in a technology world too, we're very fortunate that, like one of the stats to just put scale in perspective. So to use Fetch, who here has used Fetch? Okay, some people. You should all download Fetch. It's a very easy way of getting additional money back. But one of the base ways that you use it is you take pictures of receipts, you connect your Amazon account, and every time you submit a transaction, you earn Fetch points that you can turn into gift cards. Super high level, that's what you do. And our average consumer today submits like 30 receipts a month. So they're submitting a lot of their transactions. We all have lots of transactions throughout the day. And if you look at the dollar amount on those receipts that our consumers' purchasing power, we capture almost $200 billion a year of purchasing power, of sales that people are making at stores. And one of the things that, like, for us, that was always just like a grounding factor of it at that scale, technology enabled that because we didn't have to launch a single store. There's only two companies in the US that touch more dollars than us at an item level, and it's Amazon and Walmart. Now, the difference between us and them is they had huge fulfillment infrastructures that they had to build. Walmart had to build all the stores, they have to fill them all up with products. We are completely digital. We're just a mobile app. So I think the nice part is like any company can sprout from anywhere, which was again that the grounding of like we could get to that scale very quickly because everyone has a phone and can download an app and therefore can do this. So I think in the world now with AI too, it's all the more like you shouldn't have a belief that even if it's a big problem that you can't quickly make a real impactful change in that because again, like the environment's set up to allow you to.
I'm tempted to jump right to some AI questions, but I'm going to stick with my schedule here because I think there's a lot of interest in that. But once you got to that point where the fears weren't maybe hourly or daily, but were a little bit further off, and you really started to build Fetch bigger, and start to scale. How did you go about building that first group of people that you surrounded yourself with that you could feel comfortable with to be successful? And I think even maybe more interestingly, how would you do that differently now if you could go back?
Well, you gotta remember when we first started, I didn't have a whole lot of choice. It was really whoever was willing to come and join the company that we had started. I mean, it was truly early stage. People always ask, like, how do you start a business? I'm like, you literally just start writing stuff down. And then eventually after a couple of weeks, like you have enough created and documented that you can technically call it a business, but there's like never an actual, I guess you could file an LLC, but there's never really a moment that you just cross over and now you're a real company. So there's always that weird part of like, oh my gosh, these the first three people now agreed to work for us. Like it's such a weird feeling as a 19-year-old doing that. So early on, it was literally we put up flyers in the computer science department that just said, want to come work at Fetch. And I had a Microsoft Paint made a logo for us, and we had won access to a free office space at our university. So we were like, come to our offices. And people were like showing up thinking we're a real company. And I'm just like, this is literally something that we just wrote down on a piece of paper a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, it was whoever was willing to walk through the door at that point. I found my first Android engineer at a gas station. Because I was just asking him what he was doing, and he told me he develops on the side, and I was like, oh, do you want a job? So yeah, beggars aren't choosers at the beginning. I think over time, what we were looking for is, each stage of the business has different talent and people that you need. Early on, you need people that are very much jack of all trades. People who can, one day be focused on doing marketing, the next day be helping you out with a finance problem, the next day be in front of an investor with you pitching. Because the more you just have fewer resources, fewer people, so everyone has to be willing to stretch and do different things. Over time, you then shift towards having more specialized type of functions and people, so that changes completely. I think if I was to redo it, I would probably just I'd be less sad when something didn't work out. I think now in hindsight, like the reality was that because of how we couldn't, I always held on to those early teams. And the second we'd lose someone, I'd be like, what do they know about the business that I don't know? Why are we going to fail if they're willing to leave? And I would take it extremely personally. And I think the reality is, today, thanks to AI, actually, we only have like 800 employees now. But we've probably employed at any one given time, probably 3,500 people across the whole history of Fetch. So the reality is like people do come in and out, and there's a right time for them and a wrong place. And that doesn't, if someone leaves, we've had lots of people quit on us. It doesn't mean that they know something I didn't know. So I wouldn't take that stuff so personally. Because I think that was definitely always a mental hurdle if someone was to quit or something like that. I'd be more comfortable. Or if I was to hire the wrong person, I'd beat myself up over it. But it's like, no, the reality is that's going to happen. It's okay. Just move quickly on it.
Your business becomes your baby, and you have this tight emotional attachment to it. Absolutely. One thing you mentioned as you were answering that, you talked about going and having people raise funds with you, and I think you've raised funds at so many different levels, more different levels than any other person I've ever met or known somewhat in the business world. And I guess I'm curious for Fetch, different fundraising milestones, but more importantly, how you think about raising funds at different levels and what you found to be kind of the most challenging times to raise funds.
I think we were lucky overall with the timing. of when we were in the market. So we had done a bunch of angel investing and probably raised a total of like $8 million between 2013 when I dropped out of school and 2017 when we eventually pivoted to launching the Fetch app as it is today. And then from 2017 through 2022, we raised $500 million. And every year we would raise a round of funding and we would raise more and the valuation would go up. And for our business, that was very purposeful and needed. I always get frustrated when I meet founders who like wear raising money as like a badge of pride, because in some instances it's good, but like it's not the outcome you're looking for. Like raising funding you're diluting yourself. You're taking less of your company and you're selling a part of it. So I was never all that excited by it other than, oh, this will allow me to invest more. And for a business like ours, we had to invest very aggressively to get to a certain scale where we became sustainable. Because we're a marketing, like our revenue is a marketing engine. So only at a certain scale of people, which now 1 in 10 households in the US use us every single month. And at that scale, we touch 10% of the US. That's enough that most advertisers know they should advertise on Fetch. So that's where we like became much more sustainable. We could get to profitability, and we can grow that way now. But in those 5 years where we raised $500 million, we also spent $500 million, and it was because we were investing and giving our users more value. We were hiring the team well in advance of having enough revenue to do it, and it was all about like bridging the gap to a large enough scale where it could actually fund itself. So for us, it was very purposeful. There's no way we would have gotten to our current scale without having raised a lot of money. So for me, that was what we were always viewing it as. But again, it was less like a celebratory milestone. I think early on I thought it was, and then the reality kind of set in that it's not, and that's where we had to get to profitability. And now that we run the business profitably, it's awesome because I don't have to worry about going out and fundraising.
Well, it's such a thing you think about. I think about young entrepreneurs just starting to raise money. It's such an effort to go and raise money, and like a lot of people get turned down a lot of times. So it always feels like a win, but I never really thought of it. It really is. In some ways, it's kind of more of a maybe not the win that we sometimes think of it as, but it's still impressive that you can do it when you get it done.
Just do it purposefully.
Yeah,
that, I guess is the key point. Like it's not an outcome necessarily, unless you're selling your own shares, and then sure, that's an outcome if that's what you're focused on. But for us, we always raised it because we knew what we needed to invest in, and we knew that if we invested there and it worked, the overall share of the pie would be so much larger that all of our employees' portions would be worth more. That was always our goal.
That's awesome. Changing the topic a little bit to kind of leadership. I think about myself. I run a small department here at Suffolk. I lead like 5 people. It's one of the most rewarding things that I do, but it's actually still quite challenging. So I can't imagine what leading 100, people, let alone 1,000 people is like. And I'm just wondering, when you think about the way you go about building teams and building your group larger and larger, what do you do to be able to drive such a large organization forward and lead such a large organization? And what are some of the lessons you've learned around it?
One, hire people around you who have more experience and are smarter in their area than you are. And don't be afraid of that. It's easy enough for me to say as a founding CEO because no one can take the founder spot. That's like a guaranteed position. Once you found the company, no one can take that away from you. But the CEO role, I told the company about all my leaders a couple of years ago. I was like, stop calling me founder, call me CEO. Because CEO, you have to earn every single day. And in that role, I think it's really important because you can get fired, by the way. I can get fired. Therefore, I think my role is to surround myself with people that are really, really good at what they do. And since I'm a first-time CEO at this scale, I need to have people around me that know better than me and that I can follow their guidance on. But the hard thing for my job is once I've seen that we've outgrown even that person, then I have to be able to make that change. So the person that before was like leading and teaching you, at some point, if they can't keep growing themselves, then you have to, it's very weird. You have to actually be the one who then transitions them either to a different role or out of the business. And that part's really hard. But again, it's like what you need to do if you want to keep growing at that rate. The second thing that I focus on is just context, helping people understand the context of our business, why we do what we do. It's probably the number one thing that a CEO can do. Because even if you're surrounded with a bunch of people who are smarter than you, if they don't know the direction that you're wanting to go, or that you see the business going, then they might be running in different directions, accidentally working against one another. And then you end up not getting to where you're wanting to go. So being clear in the context of why you're doing what you're doing, where you're trying to get to, and holding people accountable and all of the updates they give you to tie back to those things is really important as the organization gets larger and larger. When it was small, it was easier to like know everything that's going on. So therefore I can help make sure everything stays on track. Large organization, you can't do that as much. You have to really lead through context.
One of the things that fascinates me about growth and about culture is how, it's when you're 10 people, you get to see everybody, you can talk to everybody. When you're 100 people, maybe there's still even an opportunity to do that. But how do you get the person that reports to the person that reports to the person that reports to you to follow and have that same culture every day? I understand the direct reports and how we do that, but like, how do you get it so ingrained in the institution that everyone knows what to do?
Repetition. It's incredibly frustrating, but repetition. I'll give an example of that. If something is important and you wanted someone to actually listen to the message, then you have to make your own time for it. Otherwise, they'll assume it's not actually that important. So every Monday when we have new people starting at Fetch, which we have new people starting every Monday, I do a welcome session. And I could videotape it for sure, and I would get that time back, and I wouldn't have to repeat myself every Monday. But I make the time for it, one, to be able to say hello to everyone new joining the team, thank them for choosing to come to Fetch, and then tell them where we came from, what we're doing today, and where we're going. Every single person who starts at Fetch gets that exact same messaging from me. And they get it live. They know I actually care about it because I'm spending the time to do that with them. It's then the same. You have to be repetitive in your company updates, which we do a company update once a month. And you have other cultural norms that are set up. Like every Friday, we have everyone kind of gives their department recap on the hits, the misses, and what they're working on next. Those things are always tied back to the core value, the core goals that we are going after as a company. So there's a lot of it. I do a lot of skip levels. I'll meet with people that report 10 people below me, and I'll just touch base with them because I'm curious what they think our goals are, why we're doing certain things. Even though I technically have, I think, 7 directs, I often communicate with actually my top 50, and I pull them all together so that I'm sharing the information across that. I think large companies get into problems if they have information asymmetry where one person just knows more than the other. They can always kind of get their way just by navigating it. That's not right, because you should make sure everyone has that context, or as much as possible, so that the ideas are what actually raise up or down or get funding and things like that. So
I just still think that meeting with every new hire is such an amazing thing. I know we've talked about it before. I didn't ask directly because I didn't know if you still did it or not.
We'll do it.
But that is such a cool thing. I think it's really neat. They always say you're kind of, lonely at the top type thing. And I'm curious, when you're making decisions on your own, I'm sure there's lots of stress. I know you're obviously taking into the advice of all the people around you, but how do you deal with the stress, and how do you prevent burnout from something like this?
I share a lot with my team. I definitely share the burden with them. We enjoy the successes together very shortly, but mostly we spend time in the pain and the things that are going wrong. We also make time to get together in person. We have rituals of times that we get together during the week, and I really don't nowadays. I don't hold much that I'm the only person in the company who knows about. Chances are someone around me is also helping me on the things that are keeping me up at night. Early on in my career, I definitely didn't do that, and it was the worst thing I could have done because I was burning out and I was going to quit numerous times. So I think I started to realize you have to trust your team, you have to share information with them, and be willing to be wrong in front of people, and that will actually be very worthwhile long term.
Excellent. So I would be, I think I'd be cheating everybody if I sat down with a tech CEO and didn't at least spend some time talking about AI. Maybe just to set the context, how is Fetch currently using AI? I mean, I know we've talked about this and we're doing some stuff with Suffolk, but where do you think about AI in Fetch?
It's a suite of technologies that we've been paying attention to for the last 2 years pretty closely. I'm fortunate enough through a lot of my investors that I get to meet with the CEOs of a lot of the foundational models out there, Anthropics of the world, OpenAIs. and see like what they're working on the cutting edge. I would say it wasn't until some of the updates that we saw in Q1 of this year that I had that moment of, this is a advancing curve that if we don't fundamentally shift all of our employees to be utilizing and all of our core technologies to be utilizing, we are going to fundamentally fall off the pace of improvement that people can then achieve and that consumers will expect, our partners will expect, and we will fall behind as a company. There's never been a technology that's had so much dollars and human resources, intellect thrown at it in such a short period of time, that it's the rate of return that you're seeing of just like the intelligence is a boom that, in my opinion, you can't avoid. So we started thinking, okay, how do we get more drastic? We could tell people, like I started by sending out a memo telling people that we're going to be AI first. Here's what that means. I expect you to do this. I expect you to utilize the tools. We then made it really simple for our employees to go sign up for any tools that they want to use. I made it so legal and finance were, giving the approvals, so there was no barriers on that side. And then we shut down the company for a week. Literally everyone, all 1,000 people, we just shut it down. Hard to do for some companies. Everyone gives me excuses of why they can't. I'm so thankful we did. Because in that week, we started by having OpenAI, Gemini, Anthropic all come in and talk to us about what's possible. And then the 1,000 people broke into 200 teams and went and actually did projects from start to finish. And by Friday, we had people who were releasing things. We had marketing people checking code into our code base. We had people that were just doing things that they never thought were possible that they now realized were. Since then, the company's, we've actually downsized by 20%. That's the hard part about this, is it impacts people. We are hiring way fewer people, even though we're growing faster. It impacts every department at Fetch. But everyone knows now that, in our opinion, to be world-class talent, it means you have to be fully embracing AI. You have to utilize the tools. And you should be able to tell us all the things that you think in your job that you do today that you're going to be able to automate and what you're going to do with your extra free time. Wow. And there's not a single person at the company that isn't fully embracing that. If not, they're not here anymore.
It's funny, working in education, which is not thought of as the fastest moving industry in the world. Even all of us are just finding how important AI and how deep it is in everything that we're doing now. So tech companies, I can't imagine how much it's in everything. So basically a week-long hackathon with the company.
Yeah, now every Friday we shut down from noon to 5 p.m. for people to just get the extra time to learn all the updates that came out that week. Because there's, like 5 frontier models, there's new updates and then new byproducts that are, being built on top of those. Every single day, new ones are being released. So things that, like, we had an example of trying to create images, like taking like a box of Cheerios and trying to like make sure the background looks really pretty. AI really struggled in, one, keeping all the font correct and like all the sizing correct, and then having it with the right shadows and everything. Even as recently as like 2 months ago, it was failing on that. Then a month ago, it was like almost there. And then with Nano Banana that Gemini just released, it's perfect now. And now we can fully utilize it. But luckily, 2 months ago, we knew that was coming. So we started changing our systems to be ready for it. So we're making tons of changes. Basically, if you talk with any of the CEOs of those companies, what they'll tell you to do is build on the frontier of where things are currently breaking. So if you are thinking about, okay, how can I use AI in my day-to-day life, my job, whatever, where's the area where it's like almost good enough at doing, or like just 20% falling short, so therefore you can't trust it for that yet? Mm-hmm. Within a couple months, it will be there. Even like hallucinating, people were really worried about hallucinating. We're using it in art. Humans make mistake too, and the amount of the rate of hallucinations is like precipitously plummeting. So we don't see that being a hindrance anymore either. So we also, we went through and we removed anyone from the company that was naysayer about the technology, because we just said, like, we don't have the time to sit here to convince you. Right. You either get on board with it or we're moving on. And that's one of the reasons why. And we're getting more done today with less than ever before.
With more creative time and using AI, you must just see massive amounts of more innovative ideas on a regular basis.
And that translates into our revenue growing faster and everything growing faster. But that means competitors could stand up much faster. So that's that healthy paranoia. Best time to start a company and hardest time to start a company, in my opinion, right now.
So I'm going to skip the question I was going to ask because that kind of leads me into another one I really like, which is, if you were going to speak to a founder that's looking at starting a company and looking to integrate AI in what they're doing, like where would you have them look? Like where would you look if you were going to start something new specifically using this technology? Do you see it everywhere?
Literally, the first place I would use is I'd go to ChatGPT 5. I would explain what my idea is or what my current small company is, and I would ask it, what should I be thinking about using? What are the top 5 tools that you would recommend me looking at to improve based upon that recommendation? Anyone can be an expert overnight because of these things. Let alone the more context you give it, the better it is. Ours has access to all of the fetch data that's ever been created. So I can ask our internal ChatGPT, we call it Fetch GPT, and it can literally answer questions that I forgot about from 5 years ago because it has access to our company data. So I would do the same thing. I would have it help me with figuring out what to do.
So well, within your industry, the customer engagement area, where do you see AI? I mean, maybe I was going to say 5 years, but forget 5 years. The way we're talking in the next 5 months or 12 months,
we don't think outside
things.
of 12 months basically anymore. I think you'll see just consumer adoption of this. I think it's something like 1/8 of the world of all people in the world now are using ChatGPT. Literally 1 in 8 people in the world. A company that didn't even have a product 3 or 4 years ago. So as people get more up to speed on that and see all the things that it unlocks for themselves, their expectations of every piece of technology that they touch are going to increase. So our internal thought is, okay, well, if we as individuals are using these systems and watch how much better they get for us in a personal life, people are going to start wondering, why is Fetch not getting that much better?
Right.
How is it not doing it? So I think anyone who's in a technology space is going to have to even if you're not a direct competitor to ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these different systems, people are going to think that you can improve at that pace. And if you don't, they're going to be like, this is not a good technology. So the perception and the expectation of consumers in the next 12 months, I think, is going to be fundamentally different.
Interesting. Well, I'm curious to that statistic. Who here in the room? I'm just curious. Who uses some type of AI?
There you go.
Almost
90% here.
Wow. Well, a lot of students and young people. Well, okay. So I do want to make sure I have lots of time for questions, but before we get to our questions, I want to throw.
By the way, next time we're here, it's going to be I asked the Fetch question, and that same amount of people are going to raise their hands.
We'll work.
Or at the end of this, even because y'all have downloaded it. So.
Feel free to pull it out and download it right now. Before we get to the questions, I do want to throw a rapid fire question round at you.
Go for it.
So I have four questions. First thing that comes to your mind will be super quick. Let's start with. This is actually probably not even a good one because you're just. We'll try it anyway. What tech trend in your industry, shy of just pure AI, most excites you right now?
I love all the creative suite that is being released right now. The ability to create videos in real time, soon to be 3D spaces that you can navigate and interact with from pictures. All of that, the creativity, which we used to all think AI was not going to be good at. It's actually the best at, and it's really fun.
Awesome. If you were going to go back,
what I said, but ouch,
I think it's
everyone.
I think it's the class turnover. If you could go back,
I screw this. I'm done.
Right. They're taking our jobs. If you could go back and tell your younger self one thing, any one thing about starting a business, what would that one thing be?
I think it would change now. I would just totally lean into. I wouldn't assume that. I'd do one of two things. I'd either focus on a business that has something to do with physical world experiences, because I don't think that's going to go anywhere. And I think people are going to seek that out more and more, human connection, physical experiences. Or two, I would lean into how do I build a company on top of AI? So as the AI models improve, my company magically improves. That's where we're now getting to with Fetch, because we've changed over so much of our underlying technology that we spent years building ourselves. We actually ripped it out and put in the LLMs. And now every time they release an update, our systems magically get better. It's wild. We've never had that before. Because when you use a server, it's not like if Amazon improves its servers, we notice it. Maybe it gets a little cheaper. It's not like the technology magically gets better. It's this we actually get better with. So it's totally different.
Hooking on to what they're improving on a regular basis. All right, last one: a podcast or a book or something that you really would suggest to everybody, or even a TV show.
Black Mirror is always fun if you want to have some existential crisis. That's definitely one that I'm big into. No Rules by Reed Hastings has always been a really good one. That's on Netflix and their culture. If you're interested in like the actual management of a business and culture, I think that's really good too.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to right now, let's open it up. I know we still have a little bit of time before everyone's going to have to leave. A lot of hands up. Why don't we just, I think somebody has a microphone in the room.
Yes, just choose one.
Why don't we just start closest person to you?
All right.
Oh, me.
You kind of got surprised there.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I thought you were looking at the person behind me. Well, first let me introduce myself. My name is Ayet. It's an honor to be here, and thank you guys, both of you, for your time. Earlier you were talking about AI and like involving it in Fetch. Something like, because I recently graduated and we worked with car gurus, and we did a capstone project with AI. Something like I was curious about is how do you protect your data from like any like third parties or anybody outside of Fetch from accessing it? Because AI has such a big database. So I was just like curious how you do
Great
that.
question. First, you have to know what type of data we have, or what type of data we don't have. So what we don't have is we don't have any consumers' social security information. We don't have your credit card information, your bank account information, any of those things that are really dangerous if they get out, right? What we often have is your first name, whatever you tell us your first name and last name is, maybe your phone number so that you can claim your gift cards. Like it's super superficial stuff, mostly stuff that's like publicly available on your social media. So with that being the case, we actually can be extremely risk tolerant towards the data. And I remember at the beginning of our journey, at the beginning of this year, when we decided we were going to go all in on this, we asked ourselves that question. And I challenged my team to say, okay, so explain to me now, let's just say our data is now available to anyone. Like you said, oh, well, what if it's used to train on ours? Just pretend with me for a second. All of our data is available. And now everyone can train off of it. Everyone can see it. Does that change the outcomes for our business? And what we kept coming back to is no. Like what makes Fetch valuable is we have a relationship with 1 in 10 households in the US who love our product, and they open it almost every single day. They spend time with us. They care about our currency. And that ongoing relationship, whether the data that we have historically, that honestly is not that important. I always talk about is the half-life value for our data is very short. If I all of a sudden, if everyone deleted the app from their phone tomorrow, it doesn't matter that I have all that historical data. Like the business would be worth nothing anymore. So what actually matters is, okay, they have the app installed and they're using it. So we just decided that's what we care about. Let's not slow ourselves down on adoption. Let's not worry about if they use it to make their models better. Good for them. Because if they make their models better, it will make us better. So we decided to just go all in on it, not fool ourselves of pretending it was all really valuable or super sensitive. And we just decided to go all in. Now, not every company can do that, but I would challenge that most companies have a perspective that their data is so unique and so valuable that if it gets out, they're undermined. And they actually don't understand in this new world where their value as a company actually is. It's not often with that data.
Thank you for the question. Let's see, how about right next to you? Since
Glad you're having to do this, not me.
I have two questions. What are your main competitors? Just to know, like your competition.
I would argue that there is no one anywhere close to the scale of direct relationship that we have with consumers that is shopping focused like we are in a rewards program. So when we don't often run into people when we're losing budget on the marketing side that's like a consistent competitor, because there's just no one else that has this scale of a user base that is going after the type of budget that we're going after. Often we're losing out to people just saying, hey, instead of giving someone a rewards, we're just going to target them with an ad on Meta, on Instagram or on Twitter or on something else. So it's mostly just like we compete for marketing budgets. I don't view them as like direct competitors because someone's not thinking, do I open Fetch or do I open Instagram? They don't really think that way. But from like a budget standpoint, that's who we compete with.
And my second question, do you have plans to IPO? And if so, when?
Maybe. I mean, it's definitely one of the, at our scale now, there's not that many acquisitions that happen that are north of, $10 billion. So typically an IPO is the best way to get employees and investors access to liquidity. So that would mean that that's probably the path that we would go at some point. I'm in no rush to it though, because it comes with a bunch of other baggage that slows you down.
Thank you for your question.
Other side.
Other side. So how about right there, right next to you in back? Or in front's fine.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm a data strategy and data operations consultant for early and growth stage tech companies. So I'm always thinking about data. It was a good tee up for that previous question. Always thinking about data and the value of data. I'm wondering, when you first came up with the idea, did you have a sense that the consumer data was going to be so valuable to your company because of the partnerships that you were going to make with brands, or did that sort of become a wonderful afterthought? Wondering how you thought about that.
Everyone told it. Everyone in the industry was telling me that's what's valuable, that's what's valuable. I honestly never believed it and never even saw it be very valuable until very recently, where the AI tools have allowed us to actually utilize the data at that level of individualization that we always dreamed about being able to do, but realistically you would just never do. It gets you another, like the final 20-30% optimization. And at that time we could do that with just cohorts and, different rules-based algorithms that we would create. I think now some of the tools we've built with AI on top of our data are mind-blowing how good they are. And we couldn't even a year ago have even thought about creating them. Because again, it's not our technology that it's relying on. So we always had an idea, but only now have we seen its actual value. And by the way, before we lose more students, if anyone here is big into vibe coding, loves vibe coding, and is interested in working with me on some projects, go to Abu at some point.
Raise your
Raising
hand.
his hand back there. We're working on like a Skunkworks project, but I need good vibe coders who are interested in working with us. Anyway, sorry, before more people leave, I had to give myself a plug.
And I'll put it out there for the professors in this room who work in that area. I know I've already talked to some of you, but if you know anybody, please send them Abu's way also. So why don't we stay on this side of the room? We've got someone right there.
How you doing? My name is Ryan Bourget. Nice to meet you. I just have a question that you're getting all this data with people uploading their receipts, and I was wondering kind of what you're doing with those kind of consumers and trends, and kind of being able to utilize what people are buying and being able to hop on that kind of train.
Yeah, so the number one thing we use it for is to target the marketing dollars that we're getting. So if we go and work with Chipotle, they may come to us and say, hey, we're really interested in driving more people to try the new honey Chipotle chicken that we just launched. We can look at all the receipts people have submitted and said, okay, well, we know there's this 5 million people who are already going to Chipotle. Okay, maybe we tell them about it and say, hey, if you go and try the new item, we'll give you some points for it. But hey, look at all these other people that are buying Mexican food and love honey do we see that they're buying honey and spicy things at grocery stores? Why don't we also give them an offer and tell them about it too? And only when that user actually goes to Chipotle, buys the product, scans the receipt proving the product, will you then pay for that reward to the consumer plus a markup on top of it. So we utilize the data to power our engine, but it's really the sole goal of how we use the data is to get users more points. Because the more points we get them, the better they retain, the longer they stay on the program, the more revenue we generate. So like we make money when consumers are making money, and that also helps our partners. So that's how we use the data.
Finding like trends with what people are buying and then giving more rewards on it.
Yeah, because unlike a lot of like data companies that don't own a relationship with the consumer, like they'll focus on just selling the data to market research companies, to hedge funds, to things like that. We actually have a user base. My sole goal is I just want more people to use Fetch more frequently and to earn more. So therefore, all of our energy goes into how do we turn the data into getting more of that.
I'm happy to hear that it's using terms.
Yeah, that's how because otherwise, like people, if they found out that, oh, Fetch makes all its money from just selling my data and it used elsewhere, they'd stop using Fetch. So we decided very early on that we weren't going to be a data company. We were going to be a marketing company where the consumer gets the lion's share of the dollars spent with us. Yep.
Why don't we go back over to this side? And then let's come to the front, actually. We've been in the back a bit. How about right here? And then
we
we'll come
have
to the middle,
about
I
8
promise.
minutes, by the way, for questions.
Oh, okay.
How you doing? I'm Santiago. Nice to meet you. So, I know you started a bunch of businesses before. At what point did you know this was the one? First of all, and then second of all, I know you have an entrepreneurship mindset. So, do you ever have other ideas that might take you off that path of fetch that might not even have something to do with it? And how do you stay on the path that you're on?
I think that's a great question. I just want to throw that out there. I wish I would have written it down.
I don't like the question. No, I'm joking. At what point did I know it was the idea? That's actually, I'm not sure there was like a specific time. I knew when we had product market fit on our current product, but that was 4 years after I had dropped out. And I thought we were going to fail over and over again because the previous product was not working. I think the reason why I knew it was worthwhile was what I talked about earlier. I knew it was a problem that no matter how many people I had talked to, people were frustrated with, hey, yeah, I use this loyalty program, but why not anymore? They're like, I never earned anything meaningful enough. Like, so I just kept coming back to the problem was something that so many people were telling me that they still experience. So I knew that there was something there. We just had to figure out what the solution was going to be. Why I knew Fetch was it when we launched in 2017 was because a couple months after we launched, we had like 10,000 users on the platform. And one of our partners sent out a big email, and all of a sudden, a bunch of people signed up for the app, like overnight signed up for the app and started submitting receipts, and everything fell over. The app stopped working, basically. You would take a picture of a receipt, and we're supposed to process it within a couple hours. I think our average process time for the next 3 months was 6 weeks. Like, it would take us 6 weeks to process because so many people were submitting receipts, and our system broke, and it wasn't actually like a company that told us they were using AI back then to do it. We found out they were actually using a company in the Philippines that manually was pulling up pictures of receipts and typing it all in. So lo and behold, they had fallen over and they couldn't keep up with it. And no one stopped using it. They just kept submitting receipts. I was making videos and like sending them out via email, just being like, here we are in Madison. This is the company. We're real people. We're trying to fix this problem for you. Like, thank you. And people just kept using it. And we'd ask them, like, why are you doing this? They're like, I don't know. It's kind of fun. Like, I think there's this mental thing is, especially back then, when you got a physical receipt, you would think like you had to keep it. I don't know why. Like, someone gave this to me. It feels important. It feels weird if I just throw it away. And I think we were giving people something that they could do and then feel good about throwing it away. And I think that simple motion is what kept people just continuing to use it. So that's when we knew we had product market fit. Because we were like, all right, the product's totally broken and people keep using it. It's got to be good. Like, this product has to be good. So that's when we knew that was what. In terms of how do I keep myself like, I sit on the board of another company. Out of curiosity, has anyone heard of Line-Leap? Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, if you ever have a huge line at a bar and you want to skip it, use Line-Leap. So I sit on the board of that company. That company's probably like 5 years earlier than where Fetch is at. And it's really fun working with their team and their founding CEO, their investors and everything. I get to like have fun seeing a company that was where we were at years ago, and I get to help them through that. So I have a ton of fun with that. And then on the side, I actually do have a couple folks that work for me that work on side ideas. And that's literally just to mostly keep me up to speed with AI. Because like I can literally, I release other apps to the App Store that literally one or two other people have created for me. And like, it's really good because then if someone in the company challenges me, oh, couldn't you really do this? I'll be like, I literally launched an app that can do this. Like, of course you can. So I use it as a way of just staying up to speed. Like, I don't view it as a financial thing. I just find it interesting. I want to launch a restaurant someday, like just for the fun of it.
Super quick question. What's a receipt take to process now?
Instant.
Instant?
Yeah, I mean, we process 12 million a day. Wow. Okay.
Let's give Bob a chance over here, and then we'll come into the middle. Yeah.
Thank you, Chaim. Professor Cargill here at Suffolk University. Wes, good to see you. I think I have asked the same question like 3 or 4 years in a row, but this year it's in a different context because I don't think I've heard social media mentioned once. And usually in the past, that's been my go-to question, and we've had a good conversation about it. Does social media play a role at all now with all the AI you're using there at Fetch? I'm just curious how you use AI, how your employees use AI, and how maybe your customers use, social media.
It does. It's been a shrinking focus, honestly. I think the people are starting to question more and more of what's even on the feed. So like trying to like win there as a company is really, really hard to do now. So for us, that's why we've just doubled and tripled down on how do we make the fetch experience something that you literally just want to open the app every day. And screw needing another platform. Make it so Fetch is one of the platforms that you want to use, that you feel rewarded for using, and that you tell your friends about. And we're not trying to be a social media company, but we certainly want to be one of those few apps that's on that homepage that you're like engaging with and using. And then even as like a go-to-market channel, like a lot of our users will like, we definitely monitor what people are saying in social media and keep track of things that are going on there. But for us, we've been more centrally focused on ourselves.
That's awesome. And just real quickly, you've jumped on a big trend, or you've led that trend, and that is building your own community. And so you're one-upping all the big social media platforms. You've built your own platform.
Yep.
So I got the word. We're on our last question, and we're going to go right to the middle, right in front of me. You've waited patiently, so thank you.
Hi, my name is George. I'm a student at Babson, and I'm also I built with my co-founder a loyalty rewards app that we're launching here in Boston.
Awesome.
So I'm just curious, like, how'd you get people to care about like redeeming rewards and sort of getting rewarded for that? Because that's something we're struggling a little bit with. I think it's more because our user base is more towards like smaller businesses rather than like the big like companies that Fetch works with. But like, why'd you get people to want to shop at certain places and like get rewards from certain things?
Me and the guy back there in the hat. Yeah, the one looking around. There's some pictures of us from like 11, 12 years ago wearing these crappy Fetch t-shirts and standing at the front of grocery stores, forcing people to download the app and walking them through how to use it. And then there's pictures of him doing that in Minnesota, in Pennsylvania, in every location that we were launching. Reality was we couldn't find there's no like easy way of doing it. Like we just went out there and we decided let's see for ourselves, are people willing to use this? Let's force them into trying it, get feedback from them. And then over time we built in like a referral program so that they could then refer friends once they loved the product and everything. But unfortunately, I have no solution other than to get out there and intercept people where they are when they should care about it and tell them why they should care about it. Some people try to do that in social media, but like, again, I've seen so many people fail at doing that and spend 50 grand and it'd be like, I got no users that stuck with me. I was like, you should just gone and paid your friends $10 an hour to go out there and do it then, or whatever minimum wage is, 15, 20.
I got to had time for one more. So right here, this is the actual last question.
So my name is Aldir. I got two questions, real quick ones.
Real
quick ones. So like you were talking about this, like the consumer standpoint of view of how your business works, right? But I wanted to know like the financial side of it, like how do you actually make money and what's your revenue drivers? And then the second question was if you ever heard about the podcast named Founders by David Senra. So like a lot of things that you were talking about during this like meeting really resonate with what he actually like talks about at this podcast. So basically,
he's probably a founder then. most of the founder CEOs that I know of companies of our size or larger, we get along really well, and it's because all this shit's the same stuff that we've all dealt with. So like, yeah, I come to find that it's not just when you hear me saying these things, I have a number of friends who with very different businesses than mine, but similar scale, would probably tell you the exact same things. So yeah, it's unfortunately the reality is to get to a point of that success, you have to deal with a lot of those same problems. That's why. What was the first one? Was the
like how do you actually make?
How do we make money? So now that you have Fetch on your phone, I'm assuming, what you'll see is all of those offers that say get 1,000 points for buying Coca-Cola or get 1,000 points for going to Chipotle, our partners are funding those. And those are advertisements that they are running to drive incremental shopping behavior, or we have games there. You can download a game and earn points for playing games. All of that, they're advertisers who are trying to reach our audience who love Fetch points, and they fund Fetch points to get them to do it, and then we charge them a markup on top of it. So that's how our business runs.
Thank you very much for all the great questions. I just want to thank Wes for being up here with us. It really is one of my very, very favorite moments of the year is when I get to sit down and talk to Wes. So please, one big round of applause, and then I'll turn it over to Jacob.
And for Chaim.
Awesome, Wes. We appreciate it so much. Just a couple closing remarks. So we have our ecosystem fair here at 6:30 here at Suffolk. Make sure you come to that. That's going to be awesome. There's going to be people from the startup community, government organizations, accelerators, networking groups. So make sure you come and check that out. The next session here is from passing the sales baton. Scaling revenue without losing control. So if you're here virtually, it's going to be here, so you can just stay and wait. But if there's also the Sketch app that'll tell you what all the other events that are happening and going on here as well. There is, for early stage founders, this Friday, there's going to be at the closing party, you'll have a chance to share a venture or startup just on an open mic. So register for that here if you want. And then really that's it. So I'll see you guys at the next session. Thank you for coming.